We have reached my last video on skeptical theism. In this video, I will respond to the global skepticism objection to skeptical theism by further pulling on the work of philosopher Perry Hendricks in his paper, Skeptical Theism Unscathed: Why Skeptical Objections to Skeptical Theism Fail. The global skepticism objection was put forward by atheist philosopher Stephen Law, and it holds that skeptical theism implies global skepticism about all of our beliefs. But since such global skepticism is untenable, we must reject skeptical theism. We can put the argument formally as follows. Premise 1. If a being has the power to deceive us about our belief B, and we are not able to nauseam inference our way to the conclusion that he probably does not have a morally justifying reason to deceive us about B, then our belief B does not amount to knowledge. Premise 2. God has the power to deceive us about B, and we are not able to nauseam inference our way to the conclusion that he probably does not have a morally justifying reason to deceive us about B. Conclusion: therefore, B does not amount to knowledge. Now, if you've seen my last video, which covered the objections from divine deception and divine testimony, the problem with this argument should be immediately apparent. Premise 1 is false under externalist theories of knowledge. Let's return to Alvin Plantinga's proper functionalist account of warrant to highlight why. Hendricks explains, quote, "Now suppose that S holds a belief B and recognizes that she is not able to nauseam inference her way to the conclusion that God does not have a reason to deceive her about B. Suppose further that S's belief is true, that it was produced by proper functioning cognitive faculties that were successfully aimed at truth, and that her belief was formed in an appropriate epistemic environment. If that is the case, then the proper functionalist will hold that S's belief amounts to knowledge. Hence, externalism renders premise 1, or premise 13 in Hendricks' original paper, false, and the global skeptical argument is a failure. Skeptical theism does not entail global skepticism." End quote. Now, Law actually anticipates this objection and hopes to show that externalism fails to save the skeptical theist with the following analogy. Quote, "Suppose I see what appears to be an orange on the table in front of me. Let's assume I can be considered commonsensically to know that there's an orange there. But suppose I then discover the following. Someone, call him Ollie, possesses a holographic projector capable of producing entirely convincing-looking visual appearances onto the table in front of me. Now suppose the probability that Ollie is using his projection is inscrutable to me. Suppose, for example, that I learn Ollie has an urn of balls. Prior to my observing the table, Ollie selected a ball at random from his urn. If the ball was black, Ollie projected an entirely convincing-looking holographic image of an orange onto the table. If Ollie selected a non-black ball, he placed a real orange on the table. I have no clue concerning what proportions of balls in Ollie's urn are black. For all I know, the balls are all black, none are black, 50% are black, etc. I can't reasonably assign any probability to any of these hypotheses. Thus, I remain in the dark about whether Ollie placed a real orange rather than a holographic image of an orange onto the table." End quote. Law thinks the correct thing to do is to withhold belief about the orange, even if he possesses knowledge. He further holds that his situation is analogous to the position skeptical theism entails. Quote, "The skeptical theist recognizes that God would, or at least could, cause us to have false perceptual experiences. He could deceive us about our surroundings, if he has a morally justifying reason for doing so, and that she cannot nauseam inference her way to the conclusion that God has no such reason. Hence, in the same way that Ollie should withhold belief in whether he is seeing an orange, the skeptical theist should withhold her perceptual beliefs." End quote. Hence, Law thinks that the skeptical theist should give up her belief in the external world, and that failing to do so is epistemically inappropriate. Hendricks highlights 4 problems with Law's response. First, Law agrees that the skeptical theist has knowledge of the external world. So what exactly does it mean to say that the skeptical theist's belief is epistemically inappropriate? If a belief is truly knowledge, as Law grants, then what does it mean to say that the skeptical theist is guilty for holding on to their belief? I am in agreement with Hendricks that this point alone renders Law's response implausible. But there's still more to be said here. In the second place, Law's analogy is false. The proper functionalist environmental condition is not satisfied in his analogy. An environment in which the truth of your beliefs is contingent on a random process of pulling a ball out of an urn is not an appropriate epistemic environment. So even if belief in the external world is defeated in the Ollie example, it has no bearing on the skeptical theist. If the truth of my belief is sheer accident, as would be implied by the random process, my belief would not be knowledge. See my video on proper functionalism to see more on the environmental condition. Third, we are not in the dark about the probability of us being deceived about our perceptual beliefs. Sense perception has Alstonian justification. Therefore, Alstonian justification gives the skeptical theist positive reasons for thinking she is not being deceived about her perceptual beliefs. So the charge of epistemic inappropriateness is without merit. I'll leave a link in the description to go into further detail about Alstonian justification. Finally, the Ollie case does not necessarily defeat our belief in the external world. Skeptical theism is about blocking noseium inferences. The fact that we can't justify our belief in the orange through noseium inferences does not defeat our belief for the simple fact that there could be other reasons for thinking the probability of Ollie, or God, deceiving us are low, like Alstonian justification and the fact that we know there is an external world. These 4 points provide ample reason for dismissing Law's attempt to save the global skepticism objection. And with that, 3 of the most common objections to skeptical theism are defeated.